Folks, you read the title right. The Penguin made me crash out. No, that is not clickbait. No, that is not a scam. That is the actual case. And you want to know why that's the case? It's mainly because I kept asking myself the entire time throughout this series, where the fuck is Batman? Is this the world's worst detective? Or was he simply collecting Riddler trophies after the Batman? Because, you know, he's got to go for 100% before he pursues any other side missions like the Penguin. But nah, guys, all jokes aside, the Penguin made me crash out because it was such a beautifully tragic story, a beautifully tragic series that I had little to no hopes for, like when I initially heard that they were making a Penguin show. But of course, based on my last video, I was vindicated, as I always am. I knew this show would be something special, and I'm glad it lived up to the hype and lived up to my expectations that I had for it. And you know what? I can't complain too much. There's not much to complain because it was a very solid show. It had me on the edge of my seat, and with every episode, there was never a dull moment. And yeah, and this is probably one of the better comic book shows to come out in recent time. I know that's a low bar, but hopefully a show like this will kind of raise the bar even further for other comic book shows. You know, for something like Agatha Harkness, like a show nobody fucking watch and nobody cares. Yeah, hopefully Marvel will step up their game because it looks like DC is finally starting to step up their game, at least with the Reeves first. Now with James Gunn's bullshit, I couldn't care less. I don't think anyone does. Now you have all those that like pretend to care about DC, which they don't, because they don't show up to the cinemas and they don't watch the shows. But with something like the Reeves first, you kind of have like some leverage there, and you have quite a fan base with the Batman, and so yeah, you have that going for it. But what I mainly want to discuss in this video is just how great the show was. And no, I'm not going to necessarily do what every other hack is doing right now and give a full episode recap or recap of the entire series as a whole. That's not what I'm here to do, you guys, because I'm not here to give you that boring shit. I'm here to give you the good shit. And that good shit was this show in its entirety. But I'm not, again, not going to give you a recap because everyone else is doing that. Leave that to the hacks, all right? I'm not a hack, and I never will be one, but I digress, you guys. But yeah, this show is great, y'all. Colin Farrell as the Penguin totally killed it. The characters in the show were great. It didn't feel like there was any characters that just felt like they were put in as like filler. Everyone served their purpose, and you felt for a lot of the characters, especially Vic. Holy shit. Now you want to talk about crashing out. I think most of us crashed out when Vic got booted out, or he got choked out, because Oswald said, "Your body, my choice." Just kidding, you guys. All jokes aside, that was a very tragic moment altogether. I think that was probably the most tragic thing to ever happen in the entirety of the series. And no, I understand that, you know, Oswald being responsible for the death of his brothers and that being a deliberate decision on his end. I think what made it even worse with, you know, Vic's death is that Vic actually cared about Penguin when no one else did. Vic actually gave a shit. He was one of the few people that could actually relate to Oswald. And unfortunately, Penguin took him out. And I think you can look at that scene, you know, at least the build up to that scene when they're at the park and they're on that bench and they're both talking to each other. And Vic says to him, "Oh, hey man, you're like family to me." I think that was the switch with Oswald, where he's like, "Okay, I got to take this kid out. I don't want him to come along with this this crime-ridden journey that I've led him on, because you know Vic is good at heart, right? He's good at heart, and I can't let him go further with this. I can't have any loose ends." And I think you can look at that scene as like when Oswald took him out, like that was his sick and twisted way of showing mercy to Vic, because Vic was good at heart. Oswald saw that, and he even acknowledges that as he's like strangling him to death, that he was in fact a good kid and he had a good heart. And I think Oswald just knew, like deep down, he didn't want to, in some sense, he didn't want Vic to turn out just like him, so he had to, you know, take him out and basically end it right there, letting Oswald be the big man overall. Like that was kind of the whole point of the show, is that Oswald is not the good guy. He is, in fact, the bad guy. And I respect the writers and the showrunners for actually leading on with that and actually like making sure that the audience knows that he is in fact the villain. This isn't some, bullshit story where we're trying to sympathize with the villain, or he or she is just some misunderstood character. No, Oswald is in fact the bad guy, and a lot of these other people were bad guys, like Sophia Falcone and Sal Maroni. They were all bad, and I know like they had some moments where they tried to almost get you to sympathize with Sophia Falcone, and yes, she was wrongly committed to Arkham by her own dad, which was fucked up. But everything after that, yes, she definitely had agency over her own decisions, and she killed her own family, she gassed her own family, and so it's like, all right, bitch, you put yourself in this position. Nobody needs to feel bad for you. All right, you did this on your own. You want to be at the top, and then when you get to the top, or you get close to the top, you try to backtrack. Didn't quite work out. But seriously, you guys, I'm glad they stuck with that whole, a villain is a villain. It's not some like misunderstood character, like that bullshit that a lot of I hate to say it like this, but libtard writers like to do, where it's like, fuck the hero, the villain is actually the hero of the story. It's like, no, Penguin is the Penguin. He is the villain. You are not rooting for him at this point in the story, because he is a bad guy at heart. He always has been. He always will be. All right? That's a real Batman villain right there. And that is how you write a villainous story. And of course, with all villainous stories, we all, we really like the villain, of course. We know they're bad, but at the same time, in some scenarios, we want them to win, especially like at the beginning of this season, where Penguin's kind of at the bottom and he's like trying to kiss ass with all these other groups, just trying to get in and infiltrate everyone. That was really cool to see, and it was really cool to see that side of the Penguin, especially within the Reeves verse of the Batman universe, or however you want to say that. Yeah, that was very much interesting, and I'm glad we got to see more of this character, which is something I didn't really think was necessary at the time, but after watching the show, of course, wow, what a well done story. And there's a lot of things I didn't really expect them to go into, like Oswald's backstory and the relationship with his mother. And, you see this relationship with his mother, with her state of being in dementia. She has dementia, of course, and you see that play out through the rest of the series. And then, we get to that point where, not the finale necessarily, but way before the finale, where Oz's mother tries to get him to promise her that if she gets to a point where she's in a vegetative state, that he would end it right there. He wouldn't let her live on in complete agony and just basically hell altogether. And of course, when we get to the last episode, he goes against her wishes and allows her to be in that horrid state that she's in. And you see like the tear drop, you see her being very teary-eyed, you see the teardrop go down her face. And I thought that was very well done, and I liked all that tension that led up to the moment where Sophia Falcone has Oswald's mother captive, and she gets that doctor from Arkham to basically do some like psycho babble bullshit to her and basically get her to admit that she knew all along that Oswald was responsible for her son's deaths, and she truly hated his guts from the very get-go. There was even a point in this series where they basically say that she wanted him to be dead. She almost had him killed, but then she backed off from it. And you get to that point in the series, or the finale, that is, where she says, I always hated you, Oswald. You're the devil. I mean, that part right there was definitely tragic. But I mean, we all saw it coming. We knew Oz didn't have a backbone. It was getting to that point where he was going to let his own mother's finger get cut off because he didn't want to rat himself out. He wanted to keep playing the game, but of course, he'll sacrifice anybody to get what he wants. And that right there is a villain. And I'm glad, they stuck with that. They were very consistent in that like Oz is very manipulative. He's going to be manipulative because he is the Penguin. All that being said, this was a great series, and it really makes me look forward to what's going to happen next with the Batman Part 2. And speaking of the Batman, I thought to myself, like, of course, they said multiple times that Batman wasn't going to show up in this series because they didn't want Batman to overshadow somebody like the Penguin. But in my opinion, I think if Batman showed up in, like, let's say the last episode, I don't think it would have overshadowed anything. In fact, it would have just added more to the overall story and the overall aesthetic to the show, because I think the Penguin, or even Colin Farrell's portrayal of the Penguin, has enough aura to the point where it can stand on its own, regardless if you were to implement Batman into this show. But I just kept thinking to myself, like, there's just so much shit that happened within the series, with all the gang shootouts, and with, Penguin taking out Sal Maroni, and then after he takes out Sal Maroni, Sophia blowing up the city, or Crown Point. You thought at that point, like, oh yeah, Batman's gonna show up. There's no way he can ignore this shit. And then he does. And it's like, where the fuck were you, dude? You're like the world's worst Batman. I mean, come on. And then, of course, they throw us a bone in the very last shot of the show where the bat signal comes on after Oswald says, or when he's dancing with that girl or that prostitute, she says, nothing is going to stand in your way, or whatever. And then you see the bat signal. It's like, all right, fuck you. Where were you this entire time? We needed you way before then. Not right now. But it looks like with the sequel to the Batman, it looks like, based on what Matt Reeves has said, is that Bruce Wayne is going to be struggling being the Batman, or he's going to feel some kind of guilt based on the events of the first movie, which is, letting he didn't necessarily let the Riddler flood the city, but he feels partially responsible for that whole event happening, because he felt like, he helped the Riddler, take out Alberto Falcone. And I think that'll be very interesting to see in the sequel. I hope they don't dwell too much on that, to where like he's a complete beta male bitch, where it's like you get this Batman that's not confident in himself the entire fucking movie. But if we're going based off of the quality with the scripts written for the Penguin show and the first Batman movie, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case with the sequel. I don't think it'll be a bad story. In fact, I think it'll be great, just based on what we've gotten before and what we've already established with both the movie and the Penguin series. I think we can expect nothing but good things going forward, and I'm really excited to see who's going to be the villain for the Batman Part 2. I've heard it's probably going to be Mr. Freeze, Clayface, or even Hush, because it's going to take place in the wintertime. But I hope they're not going to go the whole like mystery route, not necessarily mystery route, but like the serial killer route, similar to the first movie. I'm hoping they kind of step up their game with the villain, and he's a little more meta this time around. And I don't mean like meta in like a supernatural sense, but like a little more hardcore than just like some villain that's like on par with like a Redditor, like an insane Redditor. But no, all jokes aside, I think the Batman Part 2 will be great. I can't wait to see it. But the only problem is I have to wait 2 fucking years to watch the movie. I don't want to wait till 2026 to watch the movie. But if the quality is up there, I guess it'll be worth the wait. And it's not that big of a deal. So please don't dislike the video if you've gotten this far. And speaking of gotten this far, if you've made it this far, go ahead and comment down below what you liked about the Penguin series and what you're hoping for with the Batman Part 2. Did you enjoy the show? Did you not enjoy it? Or are you just like myself and this series made you crash out? Let me know in the comments below. And with all that being said, folks, that's going to do it for this video. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.